Clear Forest is claimed to be one of the most haunted places in the world. It is filled with stories of unexplainable disappearances and paranormal activity.
It started as a simple project, a camera left deep in the forest to record nature. But when the team checked the footage, what they saw was beyond anything they expected. At first, everything looked normal. Trees moving, fog drifting, soft light between branches. Then, a strange figure walked out from the shadows. The clip spread across the world within hours, leaving people scared and confused. Was it a missing person, something ghostly, or a hidden truth waiting to be found? What really appeared on that camera that day? Join us in this video as we discuss the details. The shocking sight captured by a camera in the forest. The strange story began in a quiet, green forest, where a group of researchers had been studying wildlife for several months. Their goal was simple. They wanted to learn more about how animals behaved in an environment that had very little human activity. The team had set up several motion-sensing cameras deep inside the forest, attaching them to tree trunks and hidden branches so they could quietly record animals without disturbing them. Every few days, one of the team members would collect the memory cards from these cameras and bring them back to a small camp office on the edge of the forest. That was where a patient and observant conservationist usually spent his mornings sitting in front of a laptop, going through hours of quiet, almost uneventful recordings. Most of the time, the footage was exactly what everyone expected. There were clips of bears wandering near fallen trees, foxes darting across the paths, and owls gliding silently through the dark canopy at night. Everything looked peaceful and normal, just as a healthy forest should. Sometimes, this observant found it fascinating to watch how these animals interacted so freely, without fear of human presence. But on other days, he admitted it could get repetitive. The camera often showed the same spots, the same animals, and the same calm scenes over and over again. Still, he continued his work with dedication, never expecting that one ordinary Tuesday morning would change everything about their project. At exactly 7:42 a.m., while reviewing one of the newer video clips, he noticed something that made him freeze in place. The camera, which had been set up on a narrow leaf-covered trail surrounded by thick trees, had recorded something unusual, something that didn't belong there. At first, he thought maybe it was just a trick of the light or a passing animal too close to the lens. But as the seconds went by, he realized what he was seeing was far from ordinary. From the left side of the frame, a woman slowly stepped into view. She moved strangely, as if she were half asleep or in some kind of trance. Her skin looked very pale, almost ghostly against the dark green of the trees, and her hair was light, tangled, and unkempt. The most confusing part was her clothing. She wasn't dressed for the forest at all. She wore what looked like a black leotard or swimsuit, something completely inappropriate for such a cold and rugged place. Her arms hung loosely by her sides, and her head was slightly tilted downward, as though she wasn't fully aware of where she was going. She didn't look at the camera, didn't hesitate, didn't seem startled by anything. She just kept walking, one slow step after another, across the narrow path, disappearing deeper into the woods. His hands trembled as he leaned closer to the screen. There was no reason for anyone to be there. That part of the forest was miles away from the nearest trail, and no visitors were ever allowed near the research area. In all the months of recording, not once had any human figure appeared in the footage. The more he watched, the more unsettled he felt. The whole scene had an eerie calmness to it. The quiet forest, the strange light filtering through the trees, and that lone woman moving like she was lost or not quite human. Something about her just didn't make sense. He replayed the footage several times, hoping that maybe he had misunderstood what he saw. But every time, the same image appeared. The woman, pale and still, walking through the isolated forest as though she had stepped out of another world. She paused once in the middle of the path, turned her head slightly, as if she heard a sound behind her, and then continued forward until she vanished into the dark shadows. The recording ended there, leaving him staring at the screen with a racing heart and too many questions. Trying to stay calm, He told himself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe she was a hiker who had lost her way, though her clothing made that hard to believe. Still, he couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling growing inside him. The forest was vast, cold, and dangerous in many areas. How could someone walk that deep inside without any gear, without shoes suited for the terrain, and without any visible supplies? The more he thought about it, the more frightened he became. Not wanting to keep it to himself, he decided to share the footage with the supervisor who managed the entire project. Within hours, the video was being examined by officials and experts who were just as stunned as he was. Somehow, though, during this process, the footage was leaked online, and from there, the story took on a life of its own. But after the shocking discovery in the forest, one question began to echo among everyone who saw the recording. How did this eerie footage of the mysterious woman spread so quickly? And why did it capture the world's attention in such an unexpected and unsettling way? Let's delve deeper. The mystery and footage that spreads like wildfire. By the next day, the strange video had spread across social media platforms all over the world. People who had never even heard of the forest before were now sharing the video, playing it again, slowing it down, zooming in on every detail. Everyone had something to say. Some people believed it was a ghost or spirit caught on camera, pointing to the woman's pale skin and her strange, slow walks. Others said it was a hoax, maybe part of an art project or a big prank. A few even said that the video had been edited using visual effects, though that idea was quickly ignored when forensic experts confirmed the video was real and not touched. The confirmation that the footage was real only made the video more strange. People all over the world became interested in finding out who the woman was and why she was there. News outlets carried the story for weeks, showing screenshots of the pale woman walking through the trees. Search teams were sent into the forest, checking every inch of the area shown in the video, but they found nothing. No footprints, no clothing, no belongings, no signs that anyone had ever been there. The once quiet forest had quickly become a sign of something far more shocking. What had started as a small research project to monitor animal life had now turned into a worldwide issue that no one could solve. Even the observant, who had spent his life studying nature, couldn't explain what he had seen. He knew what the camera had caught was real, yet it felt hard to believe. Everywhere he looked online, people were talking about it. Some said it was proof of something supernatural. Others said there was a logical answer waiting to be found. But one thing everyone agreed on was that the video felt very troubling. The pale woman in the forest had caught the world's interest and fear. After seeing something so strange and hard to explain in the heart of the forest, one question continued in everyone's mind. Who exactly was that strange woman, and what deeper story was hidden behind her troubling look on the footage? Stay tuned for more, the identification and more searching. After the strange footage spread all over the internet, the story of the pale woman in the forest grew bigger and stranger with each passing day. The short clip had already traveled across countless platforms, shared again and again by people who couldn't stop talking about it. Everyone wanted to know who she was, where she came from, and why she was walking alone in such a quiet and dangerous place. The woman's slow, lifeless movements and her blank expression made people uneasy. Some said she looked lost. No one could stop thinking about her, and even the man who first found the footage couldn't get the image out of his head. Then, something unexpected happened. In the middle of all the noise and online debates, a man suddenly came forward, and he spoke with a shaky, emotional voice during a live television broadcast. He said that the woman everyone was watching on their screens was not a stranger at all. According to him, she was his younger sister, who had gone missing 4 years earlier. His words stunned everyone. For years, her disappearance had been a mystery that left her family broken and hopeless. She had disappeared without a trace during a solo road trip, and even after long searches, there had been no sign of her. The man explained that his sister's car had been found abandoned at a small rest stop, about 20 miles from that same forest where the strange footage was captured. At the time, Police believed she might have simply wandered away, but no one ever found any clues. The case eventually went cold. Her family had spent years waiting for answers that never came, and he said he had almost given up hope. Then, one morning, as he watched the viral video that everyone was talking about, something in him froze. The woman's face, her build, even the way her hair fell. It was all too familiar. He said it was like looking at a ghost. When the man called the authorities, they began comparing old photographs of his sister to the still frames from the video. To their surprise, the resemblance was undeniable. The facial structure, the hair color, and even a small mark on her neck matched perfectly. What had begun as an internet mystery suddenly turned into a possible real-life missing person case. The news spread quickly again, and now, instead of ghost stories or hoaxes, people were talking about a woman who might have survived after being missing for years. As the new search effort began, the conservationist who first found the footage couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do something. He kept replaying the video over and over, studying every detail of the trees, the path, and the way the light filtered through the branches. He told reporters later that he felt like the woman wanted to be found, as if she had somehow walked into that camera's frame for a reason. The image of her pale face haunted him. Even when the authorities began their own search, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Something deep inside him pushed him to go back into the forest. So one early morning, Alex packed a small bag with water, a flashlight, and his GPS tracker and headed back into the woods alone. He followed the same narrow trail where the camera had been placed. The air was thick and damp, and the deeper he went, the quieter it became. He moved slowly, matching the landmarks from the footage: an oddly shaped tree trunk, a patch of moss, a crooked branch, until finally he found what looked like a faint, overgrown path. It was almost invisible, hidden by layers of leaves and branches. Following it carefully, Alex pushed through the dense brush until he reached a small clearing. At the center of that clearing stood an old, broken-down wooden shack, covered in moss and leaning slightly to one side. It looked like something that had been forgotten by time itself. The windows were cracked, the door half open, and everything about it gave off a feeling of deep silence. Alex called out her name softly. There was no answer at first. He took a few hesitant steps forward and peered inside. That was when his heart nearly stopped. Inside, hunched over on the floor, was a woman. Her blonde hair was tangled and dirty, her body frail and thin. She looked weak, lost, and frightened. His voice trembled as he spoke again, repeating her name. This time she flinched slightly, then slowly lifted her head. When she turned to face him, he saw tears well up in her eyes. She didn't say a word, but she began to cry, quietly, painfully, like someone who had been waiting too long to be found. The observant said later that at that moment he knew without a doubt that it was indeed the missing woman. He quickly called for help, and within an hour, paramedics and local officers arrived. They carried her out of the forest and rushed her to the nearest hospital. News of her discovery spread around the world within hours. People who had followed the viral mystery were now witnessing a real-life miracle. She was alive, though she was in very poor condition. Doctors said she was malnourished, dehydrated, and extremely weak, but they were hopeful she could recover with time and care. After the woman was finally found and carried out of the forest, a new question began to take shape. What would become of her now, and how would she begin to piece together the lost years that had vanished from her memory? Let's learn more. The recovery and reflections. When her brother arrived at the hospital, he broke down in tears as soon as he saw her. For years, he had thought about this time, but he never truly believed it would happen. She was weak, but when she saw her brother, she managed to keep a smile. It was the first sign that she was still there, still fighting. Doctors soon revealed that her memory was badly fragmented. She could not recall much about the 4 years she had been missing. She remembered short flashes, trees, darkness, and long stretches of silence, but nothing more. Doctors believed she might have gotten a mental breakdown that led her to keep herself in the woods. Others suspected she might have been held captive and had somehow escaped, walking aimlessly until she lost her sense of time and place. But without clear memories, no one could be sure. The truth was buried somewhere deep inside her mind, far from what she could reach. As months went by, she began to heal slowly. With her brother's steady care and therapy, she grew stronger each day. Her brother decided not to pressure her for details about the missing years. He said it was more important for her to recover than to relive the pain. He told friends and journalists that he didn't care about the how or why, only that his sister was home again. Meanwhile, the observant found it difficult to move on. The discovery had changed him completely. He often returned to the forest, sometimes standing in the same place where the camera had been set up. He said he didn't feel afraid there anymore. Instead, he felt something almost spiritual, a sense of peace mixed with mystery. He would look around and think about how one small, motion-activated camera, meant only to record wildlife, had ended up capturing a moment that saved someone's life. He told interviewers that he believed there was something more at work that day, something beyond logic. Maybe it was luck, or maybe fate. Sometimes he thought she might have walked into that camera's view on purpose, even if she didn't realize it. "It's like the forest itself wanted her to be seen," he once said softly. Of all the directions that lens could have faced, it happened to be pointing right where she appeared. Even long after the media attention faded, he never forgot what had happened. He said he still replayed the scene in his mind sometimes, the pale woman, the quiet forest, and that haunting stillness before everything changed. To him, it wasn't just by chance. It was something bigger, something that couldn't be explained. The experience reminded him that sometimes the world shows its wonders in the most shocking ways, and that even in silence, there can be a cry for help waiting to be heard. Then what if another story, just as strange and troubling, began in a quiet forest miles away? Could the same mystery be happening again? Keep watching to find out. The Girl in the Trail camera. In the deep quiet of a forest, far away from any road or neighborhood, a wildlife researcher named James Holloway started his morning the same way he always did. The sun was barely up, the cabin smelled faintly of burnt coffee, and the only sound was the steady hum of his old laptop. He poured himself a mug, sat down, and began going through the night's footage from his trail cameras. He had done this routine for years. The cameras were meant to capture the movements of animals, raccoons wandering through the ferns, foxes darting across the paths, or deer stopping curiously to stare at the lens. But that morning, something completely unexpected appeared on his screen. It was early, just past 6 o'clock, when one particular frame stopped him cold. He leaned closer to the screen, replayed the clip, and slowed it down. There, walking along the dirt path, was the faint shape of a young woman. She was barefoot, wearing only underwear, and her long hair hung wet against her skin, even though no rain had fallen that night. She moved slowly, calmly, almost too steadily, as if she wasn't lost, but following some invisible line through the dark. The timestamp read 2:43 a.m. The place was miles from any road. There were no flashlights, no signs of anyone else, no reason for her to be there. James sat frozen, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. His first thought was that it had to be a prank, or maybe a model doing a strange photo shoot. But something about her posture felt wrong. Her arms hung loose at her sides, her head tilted slightly forward, and her steps were careful, too careful. It was like her body knew where it was going, but her mind didn't. The camera had been placed about 3 miles deep into the forest, an area few people ever visited. There was no easy way for someone to wander there by accident. And as he watched the clip again and again, James felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He didn't want to ignore it, so he reached for his phone and sent a message to a local ranger and the only person he trusted to take him seriously. He told her about the footage and asked her to come over. By 9 that morning, she arrived in her dusty ranger truck. She didn't say much when she stepped into the cabin, just set her coffee next to his laptop and nodded for him to play the clip. Together, they hiked to the camera site, walking through tall ferns and tangled roots. When they reached the tree where the camera was mounted, she bent down and brushed the ground. There, faint but clear, was a bare footprint, toes splayed, no tread marks from shoes. It was real. She had been there. James checked the timestamp again. The path was at least 3 miles from the nearest road and 2 miles from the old ranger station. It didn't make sense. Either someone had dropped her off, or she had been living in those woods for a while. They called the sheriff, but the response was disappointing. There were no signs of a crime, no evidence of harm. So the sheriff said there wasn't much to do. James hung up, feeling frustrated. No one walks through this forest half-naked in the middle of the night unless they're running from something, he muttered. That night, a storm rolled in. The rain hit the cabin windows softly, and as the thunder rumbled in the distance, James sat rewatching the same few seconds of footage over and over. The next morning, James did something he hadn't done before. He printed a still image from the footage, the one that showed the girl's outline clearly, and stapled copies to trees around the area. On each paper, he wrote, "If you are out here and need help, I will see you. You are not alone. Come to the cabin. No questions, just safety." Later that day, Elena returned with new information. She had checked missing person reports and found the name of a 17-year-old girl who had been gone for 5 days. Her parents told the police she ran away often, but her picture looked eerily similar to the girl in the footage. The next morning, when James returned to the same spot, he found something half buried under a log, a small plastic bag with a note inside. The handwriting was shaky, but the words were clear. "Please find me." And that was when everything changed. After James found that haunting note and the strange footage that set everything in motion, what would happen when the search led him deeper into the forest and straight to the truth about the missing girl? Let's find out. The search for the missing teenage girl. The message James found under the fallen log haunted him. Those 3 words, "Please find me," kept echoing in his mind all night long. He turned them over and over in his head, wondering what kind of fear could make someone write something so desperate, yet so calm. It wasn't the sort of message you left if you were joking. It was a cry for help, quiet but real. By morning, James hadn't slept. He sat at his desk with the note beside him, the paper slightly damp from where his hand had rested on it for hours. The forest outside was calm again, but it no longer felt the same. It felt alive, like it was holding its breath, keeping secrets between the trees. He could almost imagine her, cold, tired, afraid, and still out there somewhere. Then, just after sunrise, the ranger arrived at his cabin again. Her ranger truck rumbled to a stop outside, and when she stepped in, her face carried a mix of hope and exhaustion. She had been digging for clues. Pulling a crumpled printout from her glove box, she laid it on the table in front of him. "Look at this," she said quietly. It was a post from a local discussion board. Someone had reported seeing a girl who looked like Vivian walking alone near the Clearwater trailhead, just a few miles from where James's cameras were set up. The description matched perfectly: thin, barefoot, hair tangled, eyes wide and distant. The witness said they tried to speak to her, but she bolted into the woods before they could help. That was all they had, but it was enough to keep going. Over the next few days, James and the ranger searched the forest together. They followed faint footprints, scraps of torn fabric, and bits of trash left behind, a granola bar wrapper, a thread from a hoodie. None of it seemed like much, but each piece told them one thing. She was still alive, still moving, and she was trying to stay hidden. Then one morning, deep along the eastern ridge, James made a discovery that stopped him cold. Hidden inside the hollow of an old tree, wrapped carefully in a plastic bag, was a small backpack. The zipper was stiff with dirt, but inside were 3 things: a cracked phone with no SIM card, a worn-out hoodie with the name V Lake stitched on the tag, and a small, water-damaged journal. The ranger immediately contacted the local police to hand over the backpack and the journal, but James couldn't rest. That night, he made a decision. He uploaded the video clip of the girl walking in the forest to an online forum. He wasn't doing it for attention or curiosity. He just hoped that someone out there might recognize her, someone who could help. Within 2 days, the footage went viral. Thousands of people started sharing it, posting theories, and combing through missing persons databases. It didn't take long before a confirmed match came through. What shocked everyone even more was that her parents had waited 5 full days before filing the report. Then, just when hope was fading, one of the cameras sent a motion alert. James rushed to his laptop, heart pounding. The clip was short, only 9 seconds, but it showed the girl again. She looked thinner, weaker. Her steps were slower now, and there was a slight limp in her leg. But what made his breath catch was what she held in her hand, the note he had left for her. The paper was folded tightly, clutched like it was the only thing keeping her going. That was the sign he had been waiting for. She had seen his message. She had read it, and she was still close. The ranger immediately contacted search and rescue, but James couldn't just sit and wait. He packed food, a blanket, and another note that read, "I'm not here to take you back. I'm here to make sure you don't disappear." At dawn, he set out into the forest alone. Then, after hours of walking, he saw a figure slumped near the edge of the clearing. She was curled up against a tree, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her hair was tangled, her skin pale, and her eyes were half closed. James stopped in his tracks, barely daring to breathe. It was her. "My name's James," he said softly. "I'm not the police. I'm not here to make you go anywhere. I just want to make sure you're okay. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice so quiet it barely carried, she whispered, "I didn't think anyone would come." They sat by a small campfire later that evening, the light flickering gently across their faces. The girl later stayed in a shelter arranged by the ranger and a nonprofit for at-risk teens. She didn't go back to her parents. Her story began to unfold slowly, revealing a painful history of neglect and emotional maltreatment that had driven her to run. But even through the pain, there was strength. James stayed in touch with her. Every week, a letter came, sometimes a few lines, sometimes a small poem. One morning, he opened a padded envelope and found a small watercolor painting. It showed the forest trail, the camera hidden in the bark, and a barefoot girl walking, not away this time, but toward the light. In the corner were 2 initials, V.L. James, pinned the painting beside his camera station, where the morning light could touch it. Have you ever heard or witnessed something like this? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.